thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Thank that all that you do on behalf of the Merrimack County Republican Association or organization. I want to thank you for all the work that you do for our candidates. You have an outstanding opportunity now with this historic set of victories last November. And like Jack said, this time the Republicans have to govern like they campaigned and campaign like they govern. Otherwise, it's just hypocrisy. That's what people don't like about politicians, and that's how you can help hold everybody accountable and move this country forward. Thanks for listening tonight.
Governor, would you explain for yourself, in your opinion, what is the United States' current obligation in the country of Afghanistan, and what action should we take going forward?
Thank you. I appreciate the question. Well, for a governor, I have an unusual amount of foreign policy, or at least international experience. I've been to Iraq 5 times, which I think is a record for governors. I've been to Afghanistan 3 times, most recently just last late summer or early fall. I've been all over the Middle East, including Turkey and Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, and other places. As it relates to Afghanistan, let's remember how it started. That was one of the places where the planning and the terrorist attacks were developed and in their beginning stages operationalized. But we also have to be mindful of this. Our goal there is to make sure that the capacity to harm us or our interests do not materialize or operationalize. You know, if you look at the history of Afghanistan, there's not a lot of historical precedent for the notion that there may be a Western-style democracy run out of Kabul. It is very complicated, it is ethnic, it is tribal, there's a lot of history there relating to geography and other issues. So I don't think our main goal is building a Western-style democracy in Kabul. Our main goal is making sure we have the capacity there or nearby, or both, to make sure that any threat to our national security interests is identified and defeated. And I was there with General Petraeus last fall, and his view back then was that they had neutralized the momentum of the insurgency, that he would need about 2 years to turn it back into a positive direction. And since then, some of the success down in the southern province, Kandahar, Helmand, and others, have actually gone a little better than expected, at least in recent weeks and months. So there's hopeful signs. It's obviously very difficult, but that's our objective. And let's also be direct and say that this is not just about Afghanistan. We have ongoing and obvious concerns about the situation in Pakistan as well. There's a lot of synergy between the western border of Pakistan and Afghanistan in a way that requires our vigilance and attention as well. Yes, sir.
Governor, there's a lot of talk in Congress about going back to 2006, 2008 spending levels and things like that. Paul Ryan has written a roadmap and things like that, which also includes Medicare, Social Security. Can you speak to some of that?
Sure.
What's the magnitude? What's too much and what's too little?
Great. For those who couldn't hear the question, thank you for it. It related to government spending. What's the magnitude? Paul Ryan's got a roadmap out. The great, wonderful congressman from Wisconsin who's a friend. And by the way, given the response to the President's State of the Union tomorrow night, so I hope you have a chance to see him. Here it is in a nutshell. If you look at a pie chart of federal outlays, red being non-discretionary spending, red meaning including Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, interest on the national debt, and a few other things. The red, which is on autopilot for the most part, is already over the halfway mark. And it's growing at such a rate that within 15 years, it will be over the 3/4 mark. And much of what's left, the blue in the discretionary category, is mostly defense. So if you want to get to the heart of the matter, and you want to keep defense strong and growing at least somewhat, then, and that doesn't mean there isn't some things we can't deploy, but the heart of the matter is you can't really solve this unless you're willing to address entitlement spending and the red part of the chart. So I'll spare you the long speech, but the short version is this. We have to look the American people in the eye and say, look, we got a big hole. They know it. They know it. So we can't just admire the problem. We also have to show them there's a reasonable way forward, and we have to have a strong, clear, positive plan to do so. Here's what mine would look like in short version. As to Social Security, we need to say, look, I'm not for means testing philosophically, but at least as to the cost of living adjustment, you know, the part of the COLA, not the whole program, but the cost of living adjustment, you know, that's going to be a smaller increase if you're on the wealthy end of the continuum as if you're on the lower end of the continuum. It's not optimal, but amongst the choices we have, I think that's a reasonable thing that most Americans would accept, and it would help a lot. Depending on where you draw the cut line, it's a significant change in the program. I also think we have to say for new entrants into the program, we're going to index your retirement age to future life expectancies in some correlated way. Again, depending on where you draw the cut line, that would help a lot. On Medicaid, which is the program that the feds and the states partner on for health care for the poor, it's on autopilot. It's going up so fast, so far, we can't afford it at that level. And so we have to decide what we can afford, block grant it to the states, get the federal government out of it and out of the way, let the laboratories of democracy in the states, which are doing 100 times a better job of these things, let them compete, let them innovate, let them show best practices on how to provide health for the poor. And by the way, we shouldn't be giving health care to the poor through some bureaucracy at a state or federal level. If we're going to give them help, let's give people help directly. To the extent we can afford it, let's give them a voucher or a stipend or a tax credit, empower them and give them responsibility for choices in the marketplace. And then on Medicare, the program, healthcare program for seniors and some others, that is a 1950s cost-plus system that looks nothing like how we need to design healthcare for the future. And that's a long discussion, but know that we have to convert healthcare from a cost-plus volume-based system to a consumer-empowered, consumer-based system. And then we also have to have providers be rewarded and paid for something other than just volume, namely whether people are getting better. Because if you charge me for more volume, what do you think I'm going to get? More volume. We want to know whether I'm getting better or whether you're getting better. And we want to reward it and recognize that. So those are a few ideas, and those are the kinds of things we're going to have to say to the country directly. I also, setting aside the entitlement programs, want to tell you that if you have a chance to read white papers and go to seminars and stay up all night and watch cable TV, do that. It's very informative. But what you really need to know about government and government reform is simply this. Go to 2 weddings. Go to one where there's an open bar, where the refreshments are free and seemingly endless. Go to one where there's a cash bar, where people have to actually pay for what they're consuming in part. You'll see 2 very different sets of behaviors. And the lesson from that is this. Much of government has been run too long like an open bar. And if you create a system, whether it's education, healthcare, anything else, where people don't know price, they don't know quality, the provider has really no incentive to do anything other than provide volume, that's a system that's going to fail. And so we need to make sure that we're moving to consumer-empowered, individual-empowered models where if we can afford it, and it's an important objective for our country, we give the help to the people or their families directly, and we give them the responsibility and the opportunity to take charge. And in healthcare, for some people, they might choose a HSA, they may choose a HMO, they may choose a traditional fee-for-service, they may choose a high-deductible plan, they may choose a low-deductible plan, they may choose something else. But let them decide, let them have association health plans, let them buy healthcare across state lines, give them choice and opportunity in markets and dynamic competition, and pay for something other than just volume and historical cost patterns. We did that in Minnesota. We said to our state employees, you can go get your healthcare anywhere you want. But if you go somewhere that's more efficient and better in quality, you'll pay less. And if you go somewhere that's high in cost and not very good in quality, you're paying more. Over 80% of them migrated to higher quality, more efficient providers, and the healthcare premiums in that program have been under the market for many, many years. And it's a tremendous result. We'll do one more and then we'll get you out of here. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
How do you feel about allowing states and municipalities that are underwater financially to declare bankruptcy to get out from under those union contracts you mentioned in Minnesota?
Yeah, municipalities currently can't. And the question was, how do I feel about states or municipalities being able to declare bankruptcy? So, I always talk about General Motors of 10 or 20 years ago. When you have an organization, use them as an example, management and labor have run up costs so high, so far, so fast, no reasonable assumptions about revenues can even keep up with it. Of course, they got help from the government, which they shouldn't have, but they also end up in bankruptcy court like a lot of businesses, and a person in a black robe comes out with a pen and restructures obligations, and they get a do-over. Well, first of all, we shouldn't have the government in that position to begin with for all the reasons we talked about earlier. But under the bankruptcy laws, municipalities already have the ability to file bankruptcy, and some are openly talking about it. There's a few, I think one in Alabama, one in Illinois. I think this woman named Meredith Wilson, or Meredith Whitney, is talking on the TV about the number of municipalities that may file bankruptcy this year. They need to restructure. We had the IT bubble, we had the Wall Street bubble, we had the housing bubble, now we're going to have the government bubble. You have management, labor, and government running up the costs so high, so far, so fast, no reasonable assumptions about revenue are going to make it work. There's going to be a letting of the air out of the bubble. As to states, I do not think the federal government should bail them out. It's the worst thing that they could do. The only way we're going to get real reform, the only way these politicians across the country are going to make the tough choices, draw the line in the sand, and stand strong is if they have the pressure on them. And I think the worst thing they could do is bail out California, Illinois, New Jersey, or New York. Keep the pressure on. So as to bankruptcy, letting states do that, I think it's worth exploring. But I wish, and I think we got to find ways to put the pressure on the politicians to actually restructure themselves. But right now, if you're insolvent, you could go to the court, get a court order, and your creditors make you pay, and I suppose some judge could then order you to raise taxes. So it might be better than that alternative. Okay, we'll wrap it up. Thanks again for coming tonight. I appreciate it.